He thinks he can leave. He really thinks he can just walk away from me. Mark doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what I found in the £5 yard sale box. This knife? It isn't old. It isn't cursed. It's hungry. And ever since I cracked open the plastic coffin it was trapped inside, it's been whispering to me. Mark wants to pack a bag and run. But the knife says he saw too much. And the thing about a story like this, nobody gets to leave halfway through. I should probably introduce myself, right? If you somehow found this video, hi. That means two things. One, YouTube really will recommend anything. And two, I either uploaded this myself or someone else found it after the fact. My name's Alex. I live in a crappy 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate Mark. We've been best friends since college. We share bills, bad takeaways, and the kind of trauma you only get from assembling IKEA furniture at midnight. I used to be normal. I want that on record. The thing that ruined that? It cost me £5. Let me back up. I have this problem. I love yard sales. Car boot sales, anything sales, charity shops, junk markets, anywhere old things go to die and wait for idiots like me. Mark calls it my dragon hoard phase, which is rich coming from a guy who owns 6 different gaming chairs. That day, I wasn't even planning on stopping. I was driving through the old part of town where all the houses look like they were built before electricity and everyone owns at least one haunted doll. There was a handmade sign on a lamppost. Estate sale. Everything £5. Of course I stopped. The house looked tired. Sagging porch. Paint peeling. An overgrown lawn that had given up on being grass and evolved into some sort of other plant. Out front, tables were loaded with stuff. Old lamps, chipped plates, boxes of tangled cables, a stack of framed photos with the faces turned towards the wall. The guy running it looked worse than the house. Late 50s maybe, deep bags under his eyes, moving like every cardboard box was a personal insult. Everything's £5, he said before I'd even asked. Don't haggle, don't ask where it came from, just take it. He sounded brittle. Like if I even asked one follow-up question, he'd shatter. So, obviously I did. Estate sale? He rubbed his temple. My friend, this was his place. Family just wanted cleared. He was always making things, sealing them up. Memory boxes, he called them. Said some memories shouldn't get out. He gave a humorless little laugh at his own joke and turned away. That should have been my first clue. It wasn't long before I found these memory boxes, half hidden behind a box of VHS tapes and a ceramic clown that looked like it could legally kill me. It wasn't even a box, not really, more like a brick, a solid block of yellowed resin or plastic about the length of my forearm, dull and cloudy like old ice. There was no hinges or screws, no lid, just one seamless solid thing with something long and dark preserved inside of it. It looked less like a keepsake and more like a prison. It looked awful. So, obviously I had to have it. Do you know what's in this? I asked. The man barely glanced over. No, he made a lot of those. Wouldn't let anyone open them. Take it if you want. How much? I asked with a knowing smirk. £5, he muttered, giving me the side eye. I handed him the cash, took the block, and carried it to my car like I was adopting a puppy. It was heavy. Heavier than it looked. The kind of weight you feel in your wrists and shoulders. As I drove home, it sat there, cloudy and silent, catching the light in a way that made the shape inside seem to move. Long, narrow. I told myself it was a tool, a piece of metal, maybe a weird art project. By the time I got home, I had already decided one thing. I was going to open it. Our apartment is not big, but I walked in like I'd brought home treasure. I put the resin block on the dining table and circled it like it may sprout teeth if I blinked. No seams, no joins, just a thick, cloudy shell poured around whatever was inside. I spent the next hour poking it, tapping, turning, looking for any hint of how it had been sealed. My brain was stuck on it. Obsessed. It should have been mildly interesting, not life-altering, but every minute that passed without progress made my chest feel tighter. I got a hammer. Started tapping along the sides, listening for hollow sounds. Nothing. Solid all the way through. I had about 2 millimeters of whatever this was out of the shell when I heard the front door and Mark's voice. "Hey, I'm home. Why does it smell like dust and poor decisions in here?" I didn't answer. I was busy losing an argument with a block of plastic. He walked in, opened a soda, and stared. "Dude, please tell me that's not another one of your rescued treasures." "It's sealed," I said. My voice sounded weird even to me. Too tight. An old guy said his friend used to make these memory boxes. "So you bought a dead stranger's mystery brick for £5? "Yeah," Mark snorted. £10 says it's an old TV remote glued to a ruler. I wanted to laugh, but didn't. Something inside me coiled instead. I took the block outside to the concrete slab that pretends to be a patio. The light was fading, the sky going orange. It should have been a calm, pretty evening. It wasn't. I tried a chisel. It skidded off. I tried more force. Nothing. I worked up a sweat, my hands slipping, heart pounding way too hard for something this stupid. It's just a box, I thought. But the longer it refused to open, the more it stopped feeling like a puzzle and started feeling like a personal insult. Something ugly drifted up in me. Irritation first, then anger, then this hot, dense rage that settled behind my eyes. I stopped thinking. I grabbed a small sledgehammer we keep for DIY, gripped it in both hands, and brought it down on the corner of the block. The first hit bounced off with a dull thud. My wrists shook. The second one jarred my elbows, nothing else. That should have been enough to make me quit. Instead, on the third hit, I put everything into it. All the frustration, all the weird tension buzzing under my skin. My vision narrowed. The world shrank to the arc of the hammer and the stubborn yellow block. The crack echoed off the concrete and the neighbouring walls. A spiderweb of fractures raced across the corner. I hit it again and again. A chunk of resin exploded off, skittering across the patio. From inside, something dark flashed. Then the smell hit me. You know that smell when you open an old attic? Dust, old paper, stale air. It was like that. But underneath there was something else. Metallic. Sour. A little like copper coins and something that had once been alive, but then wasn't. For a very long time. My stomach turned. My hands shook, but I kept prying away the edges, breaking the brittle resin until the object inside slid free and clanked against the concrete. It was a knife. You think you know what a knife looks like. You picture shiny steel, clean lines, something you'd buy in a camping store. This wasn't that. The blade was long and thin, maybe 10 inches, made of a dark metal that didn't catch the light. It swallowed it. Not black, exactly. More like the colour of an old bruise. There were no stamps or logos, no decoration, just that strange, dead metal. The handle was bone. Not fake bone, not plastic made to look old. Bone. Yellowed, polished smooth by years of hands. And carved into it, running in chaotic overlapping bands, were tiny symbols. Not letters, not anything I recognised. More like scratches made with intent. Little marks you'd carve in a wall if you were locked in somewhere trying to track the days, in a place where time didn't mean anything anymore. I picked it up, and everything in me went quiet. The weight was perfect. Balanced. Not too heavy, not too light. It settled into my palm like it had been waiting for me, like it knew the exact shape of my grip. For a second, I felt something hum along my arm, like a faint vibration or a low note no one else could hear. Adrenaline, I told myself. Just adrenaline. Behind me, Mark stepped out onto the patio. The sarcasm was gone in his voice. "Okay," he said slowly. "That is not a TV remote." He came closer, then stopped, keeping a safe distance. "What are those marks?" I couldn't take my eyes off the blade. No idea. I should have put it down. I didn't. That night, I set it on my bedside table, not on a shelf, not in a drawer, right next to my pillow. I don't even remember deciding to do that. I just remember lying in bed, the room dark, feeling oddly reassured knowing it was within reach. That's when things started to rot. It didn't begin with anything dramatic. No voices whispering in Latin, no shadows crawling up the walls. It started with a coffee mug. The next morning, Mark was half asleep, messing around with the kettle. I was scrolling my phone at the table, a headache already blooming behind my eyes. He reached past me to grab the sugar, clipped my mug with his elbow and sent it flying. Ceramic exploded across the floor, coffee splattering my bare feet. "Shit, sorry," he said instantly, already crouching to pick up the pieces. "My bad, I'll buy you a new one." Normally, it would have been nothing. An accident. I'd crack a joke, grab paper towels, move on. Instead, something inside me snapped. Heat surged up my chest so fast it made my vision shudder. My hands clenched on the edge of the table. For a wild, terrifying second, the world narrowed to the back of Mark's neck. I saw myself grabbing the paring knife from the drying rack and burying it between his shoulder blades. I saw it with the clarity of a memory. The flex of a muscle, the sound he'd make, the way his body would jerk. It felt good. A perfect, brutal rightness flooded through me. Then I blinked, and the kitchen came back. Mark looked up at me, startled. "Dude, you okay?" My chair scraped as I pushed it back. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stumbled away from the table, my hand flying to my mouth like it could push the thought back inside. I just need air. I left the mug in shards on the floor, left him kneeling among them. I walked, no destination, no plan, just moving. I tried to outrun the image in my head. What the hell was that? I don't get angry like that. I don't see things like that. But the more I tried not to think about it, the more one detail kept resurfacing. In that split second, when I wanted to hurt him, I hadn't pictured the kitchen knife. Not really. I'd pictured the knife. The bone handle. The dark blade. Hours later, I pushed open my bedroom door and froze. The knife was on my bed. I was sure I'd left it on my bedside table, but it lay there, perfectly centered, the symbol on the handle almost seeming deeper than before. I told myself I must have moved it and forgotten. I told myself I was being dramatic. I picked it up. My hand closed around the bone, and something in me unclenched. Calm. Relief. Like I'd been missing a piece and just snapped back into place. The week after that is hard to explain. It's like my life split into two tracks. On one, I was functioning, work, food, sleep, half-arsed conversations. On the other, my mind was quietly rotting around a single point. The thoughts started small. I'd see someone on TV and imagine driving a knife into their throat. I'd pass a stranger on the street and have a sudden crystal clear vision of shoving them into traffic. I'd picture the exact angle, the sound. They weren't like random intrusive thoughts. I've had those before. You dismiss them. These felt offered, presented. It's like someone was holding up flashcards in the dark corner of my mind. Each time, my stomach twisted with horror, but underneath that horror, underneath a part of me that was still me, there was something else. A thrill. A fizz of excitement. Like the moment before you ride a roller coaster or jump into cold water. Every night, no matter how determined I was to ignore it, I'd end up sitting on my bed, the knife in my hands. I'd trace the tiny carvings with my thumb over and over. Sometimes, they looked the same. Other times, in the edge of my vision, they seemed to wiggle and realign, forming patterns I almost recognized, and then lost. Hours would pass like that. I'd look up, and it would be 2, 3 in the morning, my arms stiff, my fingers numb. Mark noticed. Of course he did. "You okay, man?" he asked one night, leaning in my doorway. "You've been off." "I'm fine," I lied. My voice sounded flat. "Just tired." He nodded slowly. "Maybe take a break from the murder souvenir." I laughed. But it didn't sound genuine to either of us. The breaking point came over something as stupid as bills. It was a Thursday night. Paperwork scattered on the coffee table. Bank apps open on our phones. Normal adult misery. "I just feel like I'm the only one keeping track of this stuff," Mark said. He wasn't yelling, just frustrated. "If I didn't nag you, the internet would have been cut off 3 times by now." Normally, I'd crack a joke, apologise, promise to do better. But that night, his words felt like a match dropped in oil. Heat rolled through my chest, my jaw clenched, My fingers curled hard enough that my nails bit into my palms. I could feel the knife in the bedroom like a pressure on the side of my skull. You don't have to take that, a thought whispered. You don't have to let him talk to you like that. I stood up, slowly, deliberately. Where are you going? He asked. I didn't answer. I walked into my bedroom. My hand found the knife without having to look. The bone was warm under my fingers, like someone had just held it. When I turned back to the living room, everything felt clearer. Mark stood by the couch, frowning, his irritation melting into something else. His eyes dropped to my hand, and his face drained of colour. Alex, he said carefully. What are you doing with that? I stayed in the doorway. I didn't raise the knife. I didn't point it at him. I just held it by my side. Casual. The way you might hold your keys. You should be more careful how you talk to me, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. No wobble, no anger, just a flat, clean line. Mark's hands came up, palms out, like I was a wild animal he didn't want to startle. Okay, man, just put it down. We can talk. I didn't mean to. I'm just stressed out about money, that's all. I watched his throat work as he swallowed. Watched the little twitch in his jaw. The flare of his nostrils when he breathed in too fast. I realised I was enjoying it. That realisation was what finally cut through. The room lurched sideways. My stomach dropped, and the icy horror came flooding back. I dropped the knife. It hit the floor with a sharp clatter that made us both flinch. Oh my God, I whispered. Mark, I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. Something's wrong with me. He didn't come closer. Didn't touch my shoulder and tell me it was fine, like he usually did. He backed away, slowly, eyes never leaving the knife. Then he turned and walked to his bedroom, went inside and locked the door, listening to the tiny click of the lock echo in my chest. For a long time I just stared at the closed door. On one side, my best friend, scared of me. On the other, me, scared of myself. And somewhere in between us, down on the floor, the knife. The next day, I did what you're probably yelling at your screen for me to do. I tried to get rid of it. I wrapped the knife in an old towel, shoved it into my backpack and drove. I didn't tell Mark where I was going. I didn't trust myself to look him in the eye. I headed out of town until the buildings thinned to trees and old cracked tarmac. There's a patch of woods about 10 miles out, the sort of place teenagers go to smoke and pretend nothing bad ever happens in the dark. I parked, got out, and walked. My heartbeat matched my footsteps. Every few seconds, I wanted to turn back. Every few seconds, I could feel the weight of the knife pulling in my spine, like it was offended. When I couldn't see the road anymore, I stopped. I took out the bundle. For a second, I just held it, my fingers digging into the towel. If you're listening, I said, And yeah, I know how that sounds. I can't do this. I don't want this. I'm not your person. The trees didn't care. The air was still. I hurled the bundle as far as I could into the overgrowth. Branches snapped, leaves rustled. Then nothing. The relief was instant. I hadn't realised how tight my chest had been until it was loosened. The constant buzzing under my skin stopped, and the woods felt less close. I walked back to the car lighter than I'd felt in weeks. On the drive home, there was no violent images flickering at the edges of my vision, no sudden flashes of knives in throats, no urges to run red lights into pedestrians. For the first time since the yard sale, I let myself believe it was over. I went home. I apologised to Mark again, properly this time. I told him I got rid of the knife. He watched my face like he was trying to decide if I was lying. Then he slowly nodded. "Okay," he said. "Maybe you just snapped for a bit. Stress, right? We'll be fine." We watched something stupid on TV, ate reheated pizza, and pretended to be normal. That night, I slept. Really slept. No twitchy half-dreams, no racing heart, just dark and quiet. When I woke up, the sunlight was slanting pleasantly through the blinds. I stretched, yawned, smiled. And then I turned my head toward the bedside table. It was back, sitting exactly where it had always sat, perfectly aligned with the edge of the table. No dirt, no leaves, no sign it had ever touched the forest floor. The towel I'd wrapped it in was nowhere in sight. Just the knife. Waiting. Something broke in me then. But it didn't break in the way you think. You'd expect screaming, maybe panic. A wild rush to grab it and throw it out the window, drive it to a river and call a priest. Instead, everything went very, very calm. I sat up slowly. My hand reached out. Fingers closed around the bone handle. It wasn't cool anymore. It was warm. Like it was alive. All the fear, the guilt, the self-disgust of the last week slid down inside me and settled somewhere deep, behind a door that gently shut and locked. "You tried," something murmured. "You did your best." He sealed it once. That man, the one who owned the house, he tried to hide it from himself. And look how that ended. Maybe this isn't about getting rid of it. The thought continued, soft and patient. Maybe it's about accepting what you are with it. When I walked out into the kitchen that morning, Mark took one look at me and knew something had changed. "Morning," he said carefully. "Morning," I replied. I felt good, clear, like a headache had finally lifted. "Coffee?" His gaze flicked to my hand. I realised I was holding the knife. I hadn't even noticed picking it up. His throat bobbed. "You said you got rid of it." "I did," I said. Then I smiled. "It came back." That was the moment hope left his face. He tried to cover it with a nod, a little laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm gonna go and stay with my sister for a couple of days, he said later. He said later, when I came out of my room and found him packing a duffel. Just to give us both some space, you know? Let things cool off. He wouldn't look at me directly. He was leaving. After everything we'd been through, years of sharing our life, he thought he could just walk out and close the door on this. On me. On us. On the knife. And that, right there, is where our timelines match up. I'm talking to you now from the living room. The recorder's on the coffee table. A little red light's blinking, so I know you can hear me. It's bigging everything up. My voice, my breathing, the creak of the hallway behind me, and the sound coming from the closed door at the end of it. Mark's door. He thinks it's safe in there. You might hear him if you listen closely. The muffled thuds. The little gasps. He's been crying for a while, but his voice is going hoarse. When he first realised the front door was locked, he shouted my name. When he saw the deadbolt, his face did this thing, like his whole reality collapsed in on itself. I wish you could have seen it. It was beautiful. I should tell you what happened, properly, so you understand. For the record, you know, literally for the record. He came out of his room with a bag over his shoulder, keys in hand. He stopped dead when he saw the recorder. "Alex," he said, trying to keep his tone light, "what are you doing?" "Documenting," I said. We both knew this wasn't a normal answer. His eyes flicked to the front door. The deadbolt was already turned. He hadn't heard it slide. I'd done it earlier, just to hear that heavy little click echo inside of me. Open the door. Now his voice shook. "This isn't funny." I tilted my head. "You were here at the beginning," I told him. I wanted it on record. "You were here when I opened the box. You laughed. Remember?" The memory flicked across his face. "You're part of this now," I said. "You saw it. You spoke about it. That matters." "You're scaring me. Just open the door. We'll get you help, okay? There's something wrong, but it's not your fault. This is the knife," I supplied, raising it so the light could catch the gleam of the dark blade. "Yeah, I know." His eyes locked on it. His breathing sped up. "Alex, put it down." I smiled. "No." He dropped the bag. He dropped the bag, turned and ran for his bedroom. I let him. If I wanted to catch him before he got there, I could have. He slammed the door, and I heard his lock click. Mark on one side, locked in, me on the other, free. For a second, the situation amused me. Then the knife squeezed in my hand. No other word for it. And the amusement drained away, replaced by something colder. Purpose. I walked up to his door, laid my free hand flat against it. It vibrated with his breathing, his panicked movements inside. "Mark," I called gently. Silence, then, "Go away." "We can't do that," I said. "We both know that." He banged on the door so hard the recorder shook in his tripod. "Alex, please, don't do this. You're my best friend. Please." His voice cracked on friend. I closed my eyes. The word went somewhere deep and sad inside me. It bounced off the spot where guilt used to live. Then the knife's warmth rolled up my arm again. Soothing. And it didn't hurt anymore. Which brings me back to you. Why am I telling you this? Well, part of it's a confession, I guess. Part of it's proof. If they find this recorder later and say, I snapped for no reason, if they call it psychosis or stress or some guilty little label they can tuck into a file, I want you to know that that's not true. This isn't random. This isn't senseless. There's a knife. It's old. And it's deliberate. A man owned it before me. He tried to avoid it by sealing it away, casting it in resin, burying it inside plastic so he wouldn't be tempted to touch it. He called them memory boxes. He wasn't protecting the world from the knife. He was protecting himself for what it wanted him to remember he could do. He failed. He died. And the boxes got labelled, priced, and laid out on folding tables for strangers to poke through. The knife found me for £5. £5 for a new purpose. It doesn't just want blood. That would be easy. Stab, scream, sirens, end credits. It wants process. It wants the build-up, the fear, the slow erosion of trust between two people who once would have done anything for each other. It wants the moment the prey realizes the person they love is the one holding the blade. It wants an audience. That's you. By watching this, you know its story. By knowing its story, you're already brushing against it. Don't worry. It can't reach you through the screen. Probably. Alex, please. I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. He just saw. He saw the knife. He saw what it did to me. You tried to leave the story halfway through. And this knife? It doesn't allow that. Stories need endings. If you could see my face, you'd see how calm I am. I rest the tip of the blade against the wood. Drag it up and down the door. Could you hear that? Mark? Please. It's okay. It's almost over. We're going to finish the story together. My fingers are tightening around the bone handle. The tiny carved symbols feel like they're pressing back into my skin, imprinting themselves in me. He thinks he can leave. He really thinks he can just walk away. But he's part of it now. The knife needs him to stay. We need him to stay. Shh. It's okay. We're just getting started.
Hi everyone, thanks for listening, and a massive shout out to my members. Member Mark Mathern 7322. If you enjoyed the chaos, hit subscribe, like, and maybe join the membership so you can say, I was here before she got weirdly famous. Before I vanish into the editing void, here's your totally random fun fact of the day. I once bought a mystery box at a real yard sale. And no, It didn't have a bone-handled killer knife inside, but it did have a pair of someone else's dentures. So honestly, cursed knife, upgrade. Anyway, like, subscribe, become a member, all that jazz. Feel free to use the thanks thing on this video and directly support my next cursed mystery box. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Do you guys want to watch a cursed mystery box opening? Let me know. Good night.